If you look at the massive palaces of the Joseon Dynasty, they project a system designed for absolute, unshakable power. But inside these walls, that entire system could rest entirely on the shoulders of someone completely powerless. Take King Danjong. He possessed a level of royal legitimacy no Joseon king had ever held before him. He was the direct firstborn son of King Moonjong, who was the firstborn son of King Sejong. It was a mathematically perfect, unbroken line of succession. But that perfect line fractured. King Moonjong passed away a mere 2 years into his reign. Danjong suddenly found himself sitting on the throne at exactly 12 years old. In the Joseon political system, an underage king would typically be protected by a senior royal woman acting as regent. Danjong's mother died giving birth to him, and his grandmother had already passed away. There was no adult in the royal family left to shield him. He had inherited the ultimate right to rule, but he possessed absolutely zero structural protection to survive sitting on the throne. Before his death, King Moonjong explicitly asked his top ministers, including a veteran official named Kim Jong-so, to protect his young son. These men were supposed to guide the boy king. Instead, they quickly became his wardens. They hijacked his governing authority through a bureaucratic loophole called Hwangpyo Jongsa. When it came time to appoint government officials, ministers presented a document listing 3 candidates. But before handing it to the 12-year-old king, they placed a yellow mark next to the specific name they wanted hired. Danjong was forced to give his stamp of approval. He quickly realized that his absolute authority as monarch was an illusion. The perfect king had been successfully neutralized without a single weapon drawn. The ministers had used weaponized bureaucracy to turn the monarch into a hostage of his own paperwork. While the bureaucrats controlled the paperwork, Danjong's uncle, Grand Prince Suyang, was watching. Suyang was highly ambitious, but as the younger brother of the previous king, he had been increasingly marginalized from the core of political power. He needed a way back in. So Suyang volunteered for a grueling and dangerous job that few others wanted, traveling as the official envoy to the Ming Dynasty to formally announce Danjong's ascension. His true motive had nothing to do with familial sacrifice. It was a calculated public relations maneuver. By representing Joseon to the Ming Emperor, Suyang gained massive international prestige and positioned himself as the true, capable face of the royal family. Returning with elevated status, Suyang violently shattered the political stalemate. In what became known as the Gyeyu Jeongnan, he launched a bloody nighttime coup, slaughtering Kim Jong-so and his faction of controlling ministers. Immediately after the massacre, Suyang assigned himself multiple top-tier government positions simultaneously, including the role of chief state counselor, a move highly unusual for a royal prince. Danjong had simply traded one set of captors for another. He was no longer managed by bureaucratic wardens. He was under the thumb of a military dictator, and his uncle's blade was now the only law in the palace. Suyang then moved to totally isolate the young king. He forced Danjong into an arranged marriage, specifically selecting a queen whose father was Suyang's own childhood friend, effectively surrounding the king with loyalists. But Danjong pushed back. Instead of remaining passive, the teenage king drafted a highly calculated public proclamation regarding his uncle. In his address, Danjong explicitly compared Suyang to the legendary Duke of Zhou. In ancient Chinese history, the Duke of Zhou famously acted as a loyal regent for his young nephew, protected the throne from rebellions, and then gracefully surrendered power once the boy came of age. It was a brilliant political trap. Danjong was using moral precedent as a weapon, essentially sending a message to the entire nation. He knew his uncle's plan, and the world was watching to see if Suyang would choose to be a legendary hero or a traitorous murderer. Suyang realized he was being boxed in by the Duke of Zhou narrative, but he also recognized that public relations maneuvers are completely irrelevant if you hold all the physical power. He launched a final, ruthless attack to break the king's spirit. Suyang targeted the last 2 people Danjong loved and trusted, consort Habin, the woman who had practically raised him, and his uncle, Prince Kumsung, framing them both for treason. The now 15-year-old king came to a terrifying realization. As long as he wore the crown, his uncle would continue to execute every single person who showed the king loyalty. To stop the slaughter of his remaining allies, Danjong made his final act of agency. He willingly handed over the royal seal to Suyang, officially abdicating the throne. Danjong's short reign proves a harsh historical truth. Political systems, flawless bloodlines, and theoretical legitimacy are merely concepts on paper. In a vacuum of protection, a perfect right to rule will always be crushed by the absolute willingness to use force.